Alright, welcome to part number 4 of creating your self-hosted notes app in 3DVista using Baserow. Part 1, 2, 3 are the previous videos, you can check them out. Right now in part 4, what we'll be creating is the front end of the notes application where users can start logging in using their email and their user password. And from that point on, then they can see the virtual tour, they can add a note. And what we want to make sure is that once the user is logged in and adds a note, that automatically on the background, the form will recognize the user so that we can see, okay, this is submitted by Ronald or by Willem. So that's kind of the idea behind this video. So let's get into this. We'll go add new application. I'm calling this notes front end. Over here, I'll just delete those examples here. Also this. And what I'll do over here, I'll say just welcome. And in here, I'll say username. But we don't have any users added yet to this application. For that, we need to go to notes front end, the 3 dots. And then settings, users, and here we'll add a user source. So here we'll say Baserow table authentication, local Baserow, create. Here I'll say notes backend, users table. I'll select the email, the name, and the role I'm keeping as is for now. Keeping simple, and authentication, I'll select user password. Hit done, great. Now on this little plus or on the top left elements, you can say plus new element, and then we can say login form over here. Click this, then we'll say user source. This is what we just created. And that's it. Now you can see we'll have a welcome username. So when we preview now, and we'll say willem@360creators.com. And over here, you can see that now we got welcome Willem. So the login is successful, but the only thing is you still see this form, which we'll need to hide for people that are already logged in. And then we can continue building this. So go to this form, we'll say visibility only for logged out visitors. So now we preview again, and we do the same thing. Hit enter, and you'll see welcome Willem without the form. So that works great. So now we're logged in. We got that settled. The next step is to add in an iframe. So go over here, iframe, and in here I'll say embed, and I'll say iframe. I just have some ready, and here I need to fill in the URL of the tour. So I already hosted the tour online right here. So I'll grab this URL, I'll go back to Baserow, and I'll just put this inside here. I'll set the height to 800. Maybe over here I need to set this to 800 pixels as well. Yeah. Okay. And I'll make sure that the visibility is for only logged in visitors. So now we'll preview this. We'll go over here. Submit, and we're logged in. And so now this tour is visible for only logged in users, at least the embed version of it. And what I'll do now is show you that we're gonna get a new record over here. So we'll say start notes, go somewhere, test note. I'll assign this to Peter, and I'll hit submit. And now you can see once it's submitted, we got the test note over here. We know exactly where the note was taken. The only thing here is that the username is still set to Ronald and not to Willem. So we need to pull this username dynamically and find a way to do that. Now, luckily for you, I've already invested plenty of time to figure all this stuff out, and I'm just going to show you the shortcut here. So, right now, when we get into 3DVista and we get to the nodes and this JavaScript code, we can see that for the moment I've put in Ronald as a string, as a fixed text, static one in here. Need to remove this with the quotes and put in here the username. So I made here a variable called username, and here you can see that the variable is using URL params.get. That means from the parameters in the URL, it can look for username. And I kept this all the same, but you don't have to, but to keep things more simple, I do so. And when we go over here, pre-field username is, and then here I just put in this variable. So like that, I'll hit done, I'll hit publish, I go to Minio, don't need to do the whole media folder. And now I've got the tour updated. So now I'm gonna refresh the page. Say Willem at 360creators.com. And I'll try this again, and it will still not work, but I'm doing this anyway. Test node 2. Assign this again to Peter. Hit submit, and right now nothing's happening. Now, why is that? Because we still didn't define to send username through the URL. So I'll close this off. And when a form is not submitted, it usually is because a field is required and it's hidden. So, but yeah, in any case, we'll go to this iframe, and what we'll do over here is we go to general, and then over here we can set our URL parameters. So I'll say question mark to start one, and I'll say username, keep the spelling the same, is, and then I'll say username. So pulling this dynamically from Baserow into this URL thing. Now we're going to preview this again. Go log in. Start nodes. Put this right there. And I'll say test node 3. Again, I'll assign this to Peter. Hit submit. And now we can see that the username is actually Willem instead of Ronald. So now we're dynamically pulling this in. So when I refresh this again and I'll log in as Peter, we'll see Peter being the user creating the node. And I'll assign this to Willem. So submit, and now we can see Peter is creating the node and he's assigning it to Willem. So now we got that logic set, which is quite important in order to make all of the stuff work. Now we can continue creating an overview of all the tasks that are created by the specific user. So technically, like speaking, inside the nodes database in here, what we actually want is for the user to say, okay, filter, add filter where username has, and then whatever the user is. So in this case, let's go for Willem. And we want to show these two names on a list so that Willem can see, okay, those tasks I need to do. But we cannot use this like this because this is the backend and we need to show this in front end. So when we go back to the front end, over here, we can say add a new one, table. And then here, there's no data sources available. Now to add in a data source, we need to say, okay, data, add a data source. We want to not get a single row, but like multiple ones, like a whole list of things. So we'll say list multiple rows. And I'll call this get task from user. Created by user. That's how I'm going to call it. Create. So I'll say nodes backend, nodes, and here we're going to add a filter, but for now I'm just going to save it so you can see how this is initially working out. So going back down here, we see the table, and in here we'll say created by user, which we just created, and now we got a whole list of all the nodes. But because this is, when we go over here, Willem, we don't want Willem to see the nodes that are created by Ronald. We only want to make him show the nodes that are created by Willem. So for that reason, we need to add a filter to the data source. So we go to created by user, we added this, and then in here we'll say where username has, and we cannot just select one over here because then it will, if we select Willem over here, that will work just for Willem, but once we're logged in as Peter, Peter will also see Willem. So we need to do this a little bit more smart. Let's log in as Peter, where username has, and then when we click on this thing, we don't need to select the row, and then we can say has username. So where username has username. Let's hit save and see if this is going to work. Let's try something else. So we'll go to data over here, and instead of has, it took me a while to figure out, but we can do contains. So we can say username contains username. Let's see. And now we've got this to work. So now being logged in as Peter, Peter sees only the nodes that he's been creating. And when we go to Ronald, we'll see only all the nodes that are created by Ronald. Great. When we log in as Willem, we can see only the nodes created by Willem. Let's preview this in here too. Now, well, and this is something why we always click the preview. Now we see that we should make sure that this is only visible for logged in users. So let's do that. Go to visibility of this table and say logged in users. And preview again. And now Willem is logged in and he sees the tour and he sees the nodes that are created by him. So now let's add in a little title over here. Let's say heading. Nodes created by Willem. And now we can say, let's just duplicate this, Command D, move this down, and this one too, Command D, move it down. But now I want to say nodes assigned to Willem. So I'll say over here, assigned to Willem. Now for this, we need to have slightly different logic. So we'll just say, we'll need to do this process again of adding a data source, just with a different filter, where user assign has username. So let's add a new data source again, list rows, create, backend, nodes, keep that the same, where user assign contains, and then over here we can now say, with this little thing checked on, contains username. Hit save. And now let's rename this to something a little bit more easy to understand. Assigns to user. This is just for yourself, whatever makes sense to you. So now over here, I'll say not created by user, but assigned to user. And we see that that now we can only see those that are assigned to Willem. So that's great. Something that makes sense is to also have like a checkbox whether the task is completed or not. So what we can do is we can go back to the database, notes, add another, call it a boolean, it's like a checkbox, task completed. All right. I'll say the Peter test is completed. Now going back to the front end, what we can do over here is we can say add field. Completed, and then over here I'll say boolean, and Peter test should be there, and the value here I'm assigning this to task completed. So you can see that right now we just created this field in the backend, can link this, and we can see that this is now completed. So that's nice. And right now we are an anonymous user, so let's go to Peter. And we can see notes created by Peter. This one's completed. And of course, now you can change the filters and say, I only want to see the notes that are already, that are still open, or show me the notes from the user that are completed. All that stuff you can fine tune now yourself. But what would be nice at this point is not to show the view link, but to show a button that will take the user to that page. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this view link we're going to delete. Also over here, view link, delete. And over here I also can quickly add this boolean. And the idea is now that we're going to create a new page where we can view the tour. So I'll say new one and then a view note. A view note, I'll say the path like note. I want to keep this a little short. But then I want to add in a variable, because we currently have 10 notes, but later we might have 100 notes or 1000 notes. And we want to be able to say, okay, go to node 359, right? So we'll say over here, colon ID, then I'll put this to numeric, and I'll say add page. Now, with a dynamic page like this, we need to also get all the data from the specific node. So what we'll do is we'll say data, add new data source, and instead of multiple rows, we only want that single row of that node to view. So we want to have this page of the specific node and get all the data from that. So whatever is on it. Get single row. And I'll call this get node. Create. And then over here I'll say nodes backend. Nodes. And now over here, I'm going to grab this parameter that we just created with this colon ID and hit save. Now, let's add in something that we have an idea of what we're talking about. So I'll add in a heading, or maybe the text. I'm not sure. Let's start with heading, and then we'll say in the data source from the get node. So now it's searching inside the backend in the nodes, and here are the fields that are listed there. So I'll say node. Okay. Now this is an empty title. We look over here, we see that number 1 is empty. So I'll just make it a node. Creating a quick node. And when I refresh this, now we see that we have creating a quick node. So it is pulling up this first record right now. If we want to get the red cables, we need to do number 5. So you can see this is a row identifier, row number 5. So we change this 1 to 5. And now we have red cables. And we can pull up all the other data in this record. So everything we see over here is something we can pull up. And that's nice about this. So now the idea is that we can go back to the home page. I will just copy this iframe, go back to view node, add a new one, iframe, embed, and put all the stuff here. Make this 900. And what I want right now is I want to add in some extra variable, because it is going to point to the specific place. So when I put in number 5, red cables, we're still not looking at the thing that we want to be looking at. But we can do that by changing this. And I'll say then I want to have this view link behind this. So everything, the hashtag, media, da. So what I'll do here is I'll say get node, view link. And now we can see we got this. So this is pretty nice. Let's just preview it. And now refreshing this. We don't see anything. Also not a login screen. So I would always recommend, just for making things that people can always log in, is to add in a login form and make this always for logged out visitors so that people can log in. And make sure that it's getting this. So now when I preview the specific page, so /node/5, and you can at least log in, right? So now we're logged in. We can see red cables. That's great, but we can also look around, and we don't want that anymore. We want to have this camera view on top of it, and that people are blocked from moving around. So to remind you, that is to show you this foreground and then this view node. This is what we want to present in this place. And I added in a tag here called view node, and we're going to be using that tag. This is also over here, view node. So yeah, let's do that. So over here, we're going to say, okay, we have this view link, and here we'll just add in something extra. And show components tags is view node. And now we're getting already much closer to things. Now you can see we got this nice camera overlay on top of it, zooming in and zooming out, and the full screen button. So now when we preview this, now I cannot move around anymore. And I am seeing the node. So that's pretty awesome. It would be useful to have a little button somewhere to go back to the overview. So let's create that real quick. Over here, I'll just do this very quick and dirty. There might be better ways to do this, but for now, just say, okay, button back to home. Events, add action, and I'll say open page, navigate to home page. All right, so this is for navigation purposes that we can go back to here. So that is nice, but now we need to find a way that from this overview of nodes being created by you or assigned to you, that you can click on a button to view that node and do things with it, like later on adding in commands. So in order to do that, what we'll do is we're going to add in an extra field. I'll call this open node. And in here, what I'll be doing is I'll say link, navigate to, and then view node, node ID. And here I need to provide an ID of where to go to. And because all of these nodes already have an ID assigned to them, we can just say over here, nodes assigned to Peter. So assigned to user, this one. Yeah, and this is where things get a little bit, you need to be aware of what you're doing, because here we have data source assigned to user, and we have assigned to user. Forgive me for not explaining this to you. I'm not entirely sure at this point what was the difference again, but I do know that we need to have the this one from the data source assigned to user, and here I'll put in the ID. So okay, we got the ID here, and we can say link text open node, something like that. All right, so let's preview this and see if it's going to work. Need to hide some fields, as you can see. We'll get to that. And now over here, I can say open node, so orange cables. Let's see. And ta-da, there we are. Now we're looking at orange cables. You can see the nodes, we cannot move around. We can zoom out, we can zoom in, can do full screen. So that's pretty nice. Now it would be nice to have like a little button here that says, okay, check is done. So what we can do is we can say on this view node, we can then say, okay, add in a button. And this will say done. And mark as done. Okay, that's clear. Got this button. I'll say logged in visitors. And with the events, I'll say, okay, over here, I want to update a row. So I want to update the current row and make sure that it's set, that the checkbox is set to true. So I'll say integration, local Baserow, nodes, row ID, current one that we have. And we don't need to change the node or anything like that. We only need to set the task completed, this one to true. I'm not entirely sure if this is going to work, but we'll see soon enough. Peter 360 creators again, and then over here. Let's see, Willem test 2, that is this one over here. It needs to be this one, that needs to be set to check. So let's see what's going to happen. Let's open the node and mark as done. And we can see in the backend, this is now marked as done. So that's great. However, on the interface itself, you don't really feel like you've done something. So it will be useful to return the user back to the home page and show a little notification that this is now marked as done. So let's do that. We'll just add some extra events to this. So one more action, show notification, and then we'll say get node is marked as done. So that's the title. And we can say one more action to navigate the user back to the home page. Open page, home page, done. Let's quickly make sure that this is only for logged in visitors. This as well. And hit preview. Now go again. We can already see that assigned to Peter, Willem test 2 is completed. So that's nice. Now let's do another node. We'll take the test node with the smiley, open this up. I'll say mark as done, and test node is marked as done, and we're being referred back to the home page. So we can continue over here. And you can see in the back end, this is now also marked as done. So that works really nice. Yeah, I think in the next episode, I'll show you how to add the command section so that you can actually discuss what's going on. And yeah, see you in the next one. All right.